What's up, YouTube? Today we're going to be working on a 2011 Camry SE, and there's a power steering leak. So what we're going to do is we're going to replace the high pressure side and the low pressure side. All right, the first thing I did, and first thing you want to do is get yourself a turkey baster, something like this. So what I did was I just stuck it in here, pull out all the fluid. Let me just focus. All right, pull out all the fluid as much as you can. Just get in like a little catch right here. All right, you want to get out as much fluid as you can. The more you get out, the less is gonna fall, all right? And then after that, what you want to do is you want to jack up the car. Make sure you get jack stands, safety first, okay? Every time the car is up, safety is important. You do not want that car falling on you, okay? So yeah, jack stands. Jack. You're gonna need it to get underneath to get to the low pressure side. I will show you where the low pressure side is. And right above that axle will be your low pressure side. Right here, all right? So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna go ahead and remove the clamp right there. All right, so before we get started, what I like to do is get a bunch of rags so we can wipe all the drips off of the runoff. I don't like to leave a mess underneath client's car and stuff, you know what I mean? So after that, we're gonna go ahead and wipe up all the power steering fluid that has been leaking everywhere. That way, if it does leak again in the future, we can detect it. All right, with all that old oil, you're not gonna be able to tell if there's new leaks or anything. Okay, so all right, let's get to it. We're gonna put a drain pan right underneath of it, and we're gonna pull out as much fluid as we can before we start disconnecting all the hoses. All right, let me see if I can get a good view for you guys right here. So what I did was I took this clamp and I moved it towards the power steering pump itself. It's easy. You don't want to pull it back because we're going to be replacing the whole hose anyway. So it'll be a lot easier if you just push it forward, okay? All right, so like I said, we'll be making a mess right here. As you can see, it's dripping exactly where I want it to. Once it's done, I'll go ahead and wipe everything up with my rag, get everything cleaned up. And yeah, there you go. So we'll let it drain out. Before you start draining every fluid out, you want to go ahead and just let the engine cool down a little bit so you don't get burned, because the fluid will get on you. All right, so we'll go on to the next step. We're gonna let the fluid finish draining out, and then we're gonna go ahead, get on the top. You're gonna be leaning all that stuff. I like to just put a towel on the car. We're gonna go for the low pressure side. Low pressure is always gonna be the bigger hose, whether it be AC, power steering, or all that brakes, whatever. Your low pressure is gonna be the bigger hose, and your high pressure is gonna be the smaller hose. It's kind of like blowing through a straw, right? So yeah, that's how you identify high pressure from low pressure hoses. Just remember, low pressure is bigger, high pressure is smaller. So once it's done draining, we're gonna go ahead and take this off. We're gonna wipe down the reservoir to make sure that there's no cracks or anything like that. If there is a crack, we're gonna go ahead and just replace it at this time as well, while we have no fluid in it. And yeah, so we're gonna get into the high pressure side after. The high pressure side is gonna be a little bit more complicated due to the fact that this is the high pressure side right here. So as you can see, everything's pre-bent. We're gonna have to be twisting this in a lot of weird directions, okay? I'm sorry, that was the AC line. We're gonna go for the high pressure. Yeah, your high pressure is gonna be right here. This one right here, and as you can see, it's underneath the AC line, the brake lines. So it's gonna be a lot of weird twists and turns, but It just takes a little bit of time, and we will be able to get this out. All right. I'm gonna try to document everything for you. So, all right, next step. All right, now that everything is drained out, went ahead, remove the clip right here. I just pushed it back. We're gonna go ahead and pull this out. A little wiggle action. I might have to put the phone down for this, or not. But yeah, little wiggle. You wanna just force it out of there. Careful not to break the reservoir. Plastics, they do get old. They do get brittle. Take your time, you know, get the job right, and it comes right out. So with that being said, we are gonna drop it down on the other side. And here it is. Low pressure hose out. Okay. And we got fresh OEM straight from Toyota, Lexus. If you need the part number, here it is. This is for your low pressure side. And this will be your high pressure side. So you need the part number, go ahead, just pause the screen and then write it down, whatever, screenshot if you're on the phone. Low pressure, high pressure. What we're gonna do here is we will be reusing the clamps. Just make sure you get it all cleaned up and everything. OEM clamps, I find it to be the best when you're replacing OEM hoses. These clamps are actually preferred over these style clamps right here. Okay, they work if you get the right one, but like I said, OEM clamps work the best. Just get it cleaned up. When replacing any part at all, what I like to do and what I recommend everybody else to do is place the parts side by side. Make sure you got the correct part. Make sure it matches and everything before you go ahead and open and install, all right? Yeah, it'll save you a lot of time. Double work is extra work. So just to save the headache, we're gonna go ahead and just part match. Now that we see that everything is good, we're just gonna go ahead and get started on the install. Went ahead and laid out the new hose. It's right here. It's just sitting here for right now. What we're gonna do is we're gonna go ahead and wipe down as much fluid as we can, excess runoff, get everything all nice and clean. And after that, I would hit it up again with plain old soap and water. The reason why I use soap and water is because we have rubber components right here, and soap and water does not deteriorate. It does not eat up the hoses or plastic and whatnot. When you're using chemicals, you want to make sure those chemicals are compatible with plastics and rubber. You don't want to just start spraying chemicals on components and stuff, okay? Try not to get into any harnesses and whatnot. Everything's right here is on bare metal or plastic hoses, so we should be fine with just soap and water. So I'm gonna go ahead and just wipe down all the excess fluid before we hit it with soap and water, okay? All right, so here's the new low pressure hose layout, all laid out, ready to go, ready for install. Clamp is all clean and everything. Before I go ahead and install this, I'm just gonna go and run some air through the hose. There's a lot of debris, dust and whatnot in here. All that wiggling stuff can be in there, dust, dirt, micro debris. So what I like to do is I like to get that nice and clean. I'll spray some air through it for like 5-10 seconds or so, and then we'll go ahead and install. And after that, we're going to go ahead and do that with the the high pressure side as well. Even though it came from factory and in the bag, after all the work and movement, all the wiggling, as you can see, there's a lot of dirt and debris in here. So we're going to go ahead and do the same. We're going to clear out the hose right before install. All right, so it looks like this hose does not want to come out. instead of sitting here and struggling with it and trying to force it out, what I'm going to do is I'm going to get a fresh, brand new razor blade. I'm just going to go ahead and score it down past the barb. Be careful. Once again, this is plastic. Don't run that razor blade on the plastic. You want to just get the rubber. We will be replacing the hose anyway, so it doesn't matter if you cut this or whatever. You can actually cut it right now and then score it just to get some little work room. But I'm just going to go ahead and just score it down. And I'm just going to stick a flathead and just open it. And it should just split right open. All right, so as you can see, all I did was take a fresh razor blade, ran it down past the barb gently, and it came right open, just like that. All right, like I said, we're not reusing this hose, so it doesn't really matter, but we are reusing the clamps. So what I'm gonna do is once I get the high pressure hose out, I'm gonna be cleaning up the clamps and reusing it. In the meantime, the bottom is disconnected, the top is disconnected. We are ready for some wiggle room or wiggling. But before we do all that, we're gonna go ahead and wipe down the res, all right? So now that we got the res clean as possible, it's not gonna be perfect, but clean enough to see future leaks, all right? Before we go ahead and remove it, there's gonna be two 10mm bolts right here on the high pressure hose. You can see right there, right there. Let me zoom in for you. Right there, the one that's all greased up, okay? It's gonna be one right there. And your second one should be along the line. Drop my phone. You guys see me? I'm coming for you. I'm coming for you. Don't worry, I'm coming for you. There you are. All right, got you guys. Welcome back. All right. So let me just track down that second bolt for you. Put your finger on the high pressure hose right here, like how I'm doing, and you're gonna feel the clamps, okay? So just run up the line and you're gonna feel the second bolt. Just right here where my finger's at, right here. All right, there's a second bolt right here. So keep your fingers on the high pressure hose and then you will feel the bolts and the clamps. There's only two. Once you get that off, there's gonna be a lot of twists and turns, and hopefully I can cover that for you, right? If not, I'll try to be as informative as I can. Before I forget, one thing I forgot to mention, one thing I forgot to do is, let's try not to keep this open, okay? We don't want no debris and all that coming in. Otherwise, cleaning the inside of the hose would just be pointless. So, this I'm not too worried about. There's not too much movement going on right here, but the top, stuff do fly. So we're gonna keep that capped off for now, and we're gonna get back to work. All right, guys, just exactly how I remembered. All these twists and turns. Take your time on it, all right? So, my second plan to remove this is not my first time doing this. I do remember this being the hardest part, is removing the high pressure. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna go ahead and remove this hose and remove the bottom end as well, where you can see that clamp right here. And I'm gonna remove it just to give more work room. And during installation, I'm gonna go ahead and do the process backward. I'm gonna go ahead and remove this hose right here, remove this hose right here, and we're gonna lay the low pressure metal line in, and we will be reclamping everything back in, okay? Try to remember the layout. If you don't, it's not really a big deal because it's only gonna go one end and the other end, okay? But do remember which side is up and which side is down. You can do that by checking the top part. You're gonna have, let's see, it's two different bend, obviously, molded differently. So you can just line it up with the first top hose or the bottom hose know which side is up, know which side is down, you shouldn't have any problem. Clamps are easily accessible right here. So I'm just gonna disconnect this hose, disconnect that hose, so that way I have more slack or more room to work. Okay. Like I said, this is the hardest part in my opinion, because the AC line and all that, brake line and all that. Yeah, so we're just gonna go ahead and do that. Took me about I want to say 15 minutes after I disconnected the hose. So I went ahead and, this is a new one right here, I went ahead and took out the top part, kept the bottom. What I did was I pulled the bottom and I twisted it up towards me, and as I did it, I went ahead and just pulled this AC hose back. I just pulled it back, and then I pulled it up towards me, and then I twisted the top side, this part right here, underneath the AC high pressure side. Let me just hit that focus for you. Yeah, so I just twisted it and it came underneath the bottom. I pulled it out from the top, and what I did was I just went backwards right in. First thing I did was I hooked the top. Keep in mind the hose is not connected yet. Once we put the hose in onto the high pressure line itself, before we go ahead and install this in, we're gonna blow out the line one more time, just so we get a nice clean line, so there's no debris coming into the reservoir and the pump. Okay. All right, let's just get to it. We got the upper hose onto the line, also got the bottom hose back onto the line. And before I go ahead and install this, we're gonna do the same thing we did to the high pressure side. We're just gonna go ahead and blow out the inside of the hose with the air compressor for about 5-10 seconds. Make sure we get all the debris out, okay? And once we're done with that, I'm gonna go ahead and clamp everything back on. Now the thing with me is when I clamp everything back on, I like to have the clamps, you see these clamping points right here? I like to have it facing towards the most easiest place to access for future service. Do the next mechanic a favor and yourself a favor if you're gonna work on the car again. Make it easier on yourself, right? Just like how when I built this engine, if you notice, every clamp that I have on here, it's easily accessible for me in the future. If I have to get back onto it again, I will be. It just makes things a lot easier for you, you know what I'm saying? So there you go. Whether you're building an engine or you are working on the car, just make it easier for you or the next guy. All right, guys. Bottom high pressure hose is in. Once again, the clamps are facing a serviceable direction. I'm gonna go ahead and wipe everything down right here. Get everything cleaned up, even though it's not my mess. We're gonna do a courtesy check on all the fluids, air filter, cabin filter and whatnot. Wipe up all this excessive fluid, oil. Top is all clamped at a serviceable angle as well. I'm gonna go ahead and just bolt up these brackets right here, the two brackets. As you can see, the second one right there, we had a little issue earlier. It was so gunked up that we couldn't see it, but yeah, it lays right there. So we're just gonna go ahead and bolt up those two 10mm. We're gonna get some fluid into the reservoir, and we will be bleeding out the reservoir as well. It's an easy process. This whole job, if I really wanted to, without taking any smoke break and shooting this video, documenting this video or the whole process, it'll probably run about I want to say an hour and 15 minutes, hour and a half tops. So it's not really too long of a job. As I mentioned earlier, the hardest part would be taking out the high pressure hose. But yeah, just remove the top hose and the bottom hose. Don't forget which hose goes where, which direction it is, and it shouldn't be no problem. This is pretty straightforward, right? I just wanted to bring this up to everybody's attention. The first thing I did when I got underneath the car, this is your oil filter. For most modern Toyota, this is your oil filter type, okay? there was like leaks everywhere. And you guys can see this is a 3/8 drive. It doesn't really do nothing when you're changing oil. For everybody watching this channel, don't take your car to one of those drive-through oil lubes, quick lube, whatever. They are a mess. Most of the time, they don't even know what the hell they're talking about, honestly. We can tell that they took this off when you need a proper tool to take off this whole black plastic. I do have that proper tool. I will show you guys right now. Yeah, so they basically just ran a 3/8 drive through here. When you take this off, it's nothing but a ring in there, okay? It's just a small O-ring. To change the oil filter, you don't even need to take this off. You just need to take off this whole canister. I'll show you the tool right now. Let me just focus for you. This is the tool you need right here, okay? You don't need to stick no 3/8 socket up in there. It's all Toyotas, Lexus. It goes like this, all right? And then you stick a 3/8 right here. Those quick lube guys, I don't know, but if I take this off, there's a 50% chance that there might not even be a filter in there. That's how reliable they are, okay? Looks like they reused the drain bolt gasket as well. You can tell it's all cracked, it's all old. Don't do yourself a favor, right? Don't go to those Jiffy Lube. Yeah, you know what I'm saying. Just avoid those places, okay? Learn how to do oil changes yourself is very easy. It's very fast. And the thing with those quick lube places is they buy their oil in the bulks, okay? And chances are you're not even getting the right oil that you're paying for. Let's say you go in there and you pay for 7 quarts of full synthetic. Chances are you're probably just gonna get conventional oil. All right, so they don't really give a crap about your car. If you give a crap about your car, learn how to do oil changes yourself. It's very easy. It's and you know the quality oil that you're putting into your car, okay? All right, so let's get into the bleeding part. We're gonna go ahead, start it up. What was that noise? We're gonna figure it out real quick later, and we're gonna go ahead and bleed. All right, don't keep the steering wheel at the end for too long. Just go ahead and do this for about 30 times. I know it sounds ridiculous, but we want to get every single bubble out. All right, keep that cap off, and we're just gonna keep on doing this for about 30 times until all the bubble bleeds out. Top it off, and we're gonna do it again. Repeat the process about twice. I know this sounds ridiculous, but it's the only way to get the bubble out. All right. All right, after about 15 times of doing this, you want to get out and make sure the res is still filled. As you can see, it dropped down dramatically. All right, we don't want to run the pump dry, so let's keep on making sure you top it off. All right. All right, we had a little overflow. No biggie. Just gonna wipe it down. Seems like everything's topped off, and we are ready to go.